Hello, my name is Chappie, and want to just go over some of the things that I've learned over the 30 years of my doing this. But recently, I didn't know this until recently when somebody showed me that in Title 15 of the United States Code 4724, it says that the term United States business means a U.S. citizen. So if you claiming to be a U.S. citizen, then you're claiming to be a United States business. See, everything is in commerce now. Everything is commercial. I can show you in the code where the regulations say all crimes are commercial. And if all crimes are commercial, that's a sad state of affairs. We don't. That's why we don't have any privacy, or at least they're attempting to take all of our privacy away, such in digital money that is coming and everything else. That's why I think it's important to get involved in a silver and gold. I have a silver program for those who are interested. But you find the definition there of the United States citizen. Also, I might want to say that in Black's Law 7th edition dictionary, under the definition of citizen, it says a U.S. citizen means a federal citizen. So, they're trying to take away the state citizenship or the state nationality, because each and every state is its own nation, its own country. And in another video, I'll go over the details on that someday. Now here, under the Title 28, which is a judiciary code, that controls the courts and the judges and so forth, the United States means a federal corporation or something of an instrumentality of the United States, such as, and not limited to, the state of whatever state you live in. See, a state, like I live in Florida, so the state of Florida is an instrumentality of the United States. You can look up that in the Buck Act. However, I live in Florida, not the state of, but I live in Florida, which is one of the, has the same footholding as one of the original 13 colonies. Now, the Uniform Commercial Code backs this up. If you look at Article 9 definitions, the state means a state of the United States. Now, a lot of people would think, well, that means Florida, New York, Massachusetts, and so forth. And I'm going to show you, that's not true. The District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, United States Virgin Islands, and any territory or insular possession subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. The location of a debtor. You owe a debt, right? Let's say you owe a debt, you're a United States business, and you owe a debt to the United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. Now, how can, if you're thinking, if you didn't know this prior, how could you possibly think that the United States, and you're thinking the 50 states, the government of the 50 states, is located in the District of Columbia? Remember, the United States is nothing but a corporation. And in the South Carolina, for instance, same as any other state, you can look up in the commercial code of your statutes, and you'll find that the location of a debtor, the United States, is located in the District of Columbia. And just for a note, the state constitutionally is not a state within the meaning of the 14th Amendment. And neither the district nor the officers are subject to its restrictions. Okay, now it is a court case. Unless a defendant can establish that he is not a citizen of the United States, then the IRS poses authority to attempt to determine his federal tax liability. What does that mean? How do you prove that you are not a citizen of the United States? Let's see. You got a driver's license. You had to check off if you were a citizen of the United States. In fact, in some cases that I remember, I think you had to give them your birth certificate, which is another story in itself of the deception that we live in today. You had to give a voter's registration if you vote. You're a citizen of the United States. Social Security card. Your children in school, or when you went to school, your parents had to say that they're citizens of the United States. So they take a presumption that, you are intelligent enough to know the difference of if you're a citizen of the United States or not. And they don't teach the difference in schools or anything like that. You just naturally assume that you're a citizen of the United States. Well, before the 14th Amendment, that was true. However, that is no longer the case. Remember that the legislatures can create anything in statutes. They can make Mickey Mouse real. They can make, a man into a woman into a man, and do all kinds of stuff because it's basically all fictional government. Our government, what we perceive to be our government, is all controlled by a shadow government. And you can, people can ignore that as much as they like. I even have family members over the years that didn't even want to talk to me about it because they just, it is what it is. And I have fellow business people back 30 years ago when I started realizing all this. It changed my whole life, and everybody thought I was, going crazy. Well, how do you like me now? Okay, Article 1, Section 8, 17, Clause 17. The government is given, exclusive legislation over all cases regardless whatsoever, over such district, not exceeding 10 square miles, as may, by session of a particular state, and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislatures of the state, in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, like post office and so forth. And I'll go on there. Now, in U.S. Code, the U.S. Code, Section 7, mirrors that. Special maritime and territorial jurisdiction of the United States is defined. And it follows just what I just read, that they have, unless they have consent by the legislatures of the state, then they're only restricted to the federal areas, like the 10 square miles. This clause has been broadly construed to cover all structures necessary to carry on the business of the national government. It includes post offices, hospitals, and hotels located in the national park, and locks and dams for the improvement of navigation. But it does not cover lands acquired for forests, parks, ranges, wildlife, sanctuaries, or flood control. Nevertheless, the Supreme Court had held that states may convey, and the Congress may accept, either exclusive or qualified jurisdiction over property acquired within the geographical limits of a state, for the purpose other than those enumerated in Clause 17. After exclusive jurisdiction over lands within the state has been ceded to the United States, Congress alone has the power to punish crimes committed within the ceded territory. Private property located therein is not subject to taxation by the state, nor can the statutes enacted subsequent to the transfer have any operation therein, but the local laws in force at the date of cession that are protective of private rights continued in force until abrogated by Congress. Moreover, as long as there is no interference with the exclusive jurisdiction of the United States, an area subject to the jurisdiction may annex by a municipality. Now, the federal jurisdiction is defined in the statutes, and it's got to be in harmony with the Constitution. So, but it is defined as exclusive jurisdiction, not required. It is not required when the federal government obtains exclusive jurisdiction in the United States over land and interests in the land it acquires. Acquisition and acceptance of jurisdiction when the head of the Department of Agency or independent establishment of the government or other authorized officer of the department, agency, or independent establishment considers it desirable. And I'll let you read on. And now a presumption plays a big part. They can have the presumption that you are well aware that you are a United States citizen doing business as a United States business, and therefore they can collect taxes and do whatever they want to do. They can demand that you don't have control of your children like you think you do. What do you think all the uproar with the parents are? They're arguing. Basically, some of them are arguing the wrong argument. Now, some of these parent organizations are starting to learn. from people like me and many others. I'm just a small fish in a big pond here. But people got to understand the federal government does not control a man's life, and I'm not, gender is not the issue here. You're a man or a woman, okay? But a man's life in one of the several states. The federal government has nothing to do with you except to protect your rights that are given from our Creator, pursuant to the Declaration of Independence, which one day we'll go over that as well. The federal government poses no legislation jurisdiction over any area within a state. Now, the Criminal Resource Manual, when the DOJ goes after people for not paying property tax or anything like this, many people want to get in and argue the code. They want to argue the regulations, never bringing up the fact that you are not a United States citizen. But remember, the one that's making the claim has the burden of proof. That's a maxim of law. It's always been. If you're making a claim that somebody owes you money, you got to have the proof. You got to have the evidence to show it up front. And when the government comes after you for not paying taxes or for not filing, right there in the Privacy Act, it says that they are required to tell you if it's volunteer or mandatory that you provide the information. Well, if you're not willing to provide the information, then the presumption on their part is that you are in dishonor, you are a U.S. citizen, you haven't proven that you're not, and that you're operating as a United States business, so therefore we're going to convict you. And their convictions are high in number because people are ignorant. But right here in the 664, the territorial jurisdiction of the Criminal Resource Manual, it says that any land reserved or acquired for the use of the United States, and United States means the federal United States. If you think it means the 50 union states, get that out of your head. The United States, when used in this presentation, only means only the federal United States, the District of Columbia. And under the exclusive or current jurisdiction thereof, or any place purchased or otherwise acquired by the United States by consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erections of, here we go again, forts, magazines, arsenals, and dockyards and other needful buildings. So, here it is readily apparent that the subsection, and particularly its second clause, bears a striking resemblance to 17th clause of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, where the clause provides the same. We read it before. Okay. And moving on down, we go to an act that was back in 1959. Alaska and Hawaii became a state in the same year. But first, Alaska became a state. So they amended the definitions mostly in the IRS code to say that, is not including Alaska anymore, because it used to read the territory of Alaska and Hawaii. But and they say in this act here, which is called the Omnibus Act, and here you can look it up right here on the statutes at large, but each relating to a special definition of state. Remember, it's a state. They can claim to be the state of Israel, in international terms, the state of the United States, the state of Spain, whatever, right? So here, continental United States, in this instance, means the District of Columbia and the states other than Alaska. Then you move down here, basically specifically in the IRS code, the relating to the definition of a state, it is amended by striking out territories and inserting in lieu thereof territorial Hawaii. Now it's only Hawaii that is a territory. But wait, it gets better. Now the states, Hawaii becomes a union of one of the 50 states. In fact, I believe it came the 50th state, right? So now it is amended that the continental United States means other than Alaska and Hawaii. Well, that includes all the other Union states. And then in the Revenue Code, you see they struck out Hawaii and so forth in 7701. Here it says it's amended by striking out the territorial Hawaii and, for the definition of the United States. And then for the definition of a state, they struck out the territory of Hawaii. Actually, when you look up the definition of state in the United States, you don't find really a difference, Now, just to recap, when you're talking about the IRS code, the meaning of the IRS code terms, or the meaning of the IRC, Internal Revenue Code, terms, United States. See, terms to me is a contract word, because when you sign in a contract, the terms are defined. The term bird can be, an African dragon or something, something crazy, right? So the term is not really a definition, but we'll move on here. Okay, remember, unless the defendant can establish that he is not a citizen of the United States, then the IRS poses authority to attempt to determine your federal tax liability. So the first question comes in. What facts or evidence are you relying on that I'm a citizen of the United States? Remember, they're making a claim. They have the burden of proof. You don't need to argue the code, statutes, or regulations. If somebody came in from France or Ukraine and said, hey, you owe us taxes, what are you talking about? What facts and evidence are you relying on that I'm subject to your laws? And they got to prove it, or they can't really go any further. Now, they're getting very aggressive, and no huff and no puff, but if you stand your ground and you understand what I'm trying to tell you here, you'll be in good shape. And then, so now in 26, the Code of Federal Regulations, 1.1-1A, provides in pertinent part. The Internal Revenue Code imposes an income on the incomes of every individual who is a citizen or resident of the United States. Now, that's an important thing there. You could be, you would normally say, hey, well, I'm residing in Florida. Well, true in a loose general definition, but resident means that it's not domiciled. There is a substantial difference between domicile and residency. You can have many residents, but you can only have one domicile. But even then, if you are a U.S. citizen and now you're domiciled in Florida, you're still going to be subject to the tax. You got to break that presumption about being a U.S. citizen. Now, in 1.1-1, parent C, it says, who is a citizen? Every person born or naturalized in the United States, the federal territory, United States, and subject to its jurisdiction is a citizen. So you're subject to it, singular. It's not, if they were talking about the 50 states, wouldn't it say the United States is subject to their jurisdiction? No, it doesn't say that. It says to its jurisdiction, or its District of Columbia jurisdiction is a citizen. And then Title V, Section 552A, provides in pertinent part, an individual means a citizen of the United States. So when they're calling you an individual, you're thinking, well, I'm just an individual guy out of many. No, you're a noun. You're a citizen of the United States. And that's where they get you, and that's where they get you every time. The controlling definition of the U.S. terms are found in 7701. And here we go through this again, but I'll just go through this quickly because I went slowly through it before. And understand the definition of includes means everything that is mentioned after. Now, with that being said, if I'm talking Puerto Rico, Guam, and American Samoa, those are countries or possessions of the United States. It would also mean the Mariana Islands and other possessions. But you can't say includes the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico and think it also includes one of the 50 independent states that have the same footholding as the 13 original states. I hope that makes sense. Okay, and then the definition of state is otherwise distinctly expressed. Okay, yeah, when you go down and go through the code, which again, you don't want to argue the code, but I'm showing you the foundation of where you can stand if they can prove that you are includes the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, or Virgin Island, Guam, or American Samoa, then you would be subject to the tax. But you don't qualify to being one of them. And then the term requires that we identify other members of the associated group that are in the same general kind of those enumerated in 3121E, parent 1. So, we go on. The Secretary tells us the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, and American Samoa that are mentioned in 3121E are all insular U.S. possessions, territories that have their own governments and their own tax systems. To wit, in part, it says the U.S. possessions can be divided into two groups. And it goes on that those who have their own government, their own tax systems, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, America Samoa, and the Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. And then number two, those who do not have their own government and their own tax systems. The government in the first group are territories impose their own income tax and withholding taxes on their own residents. And that is right here. You know, we can go to right here to the IRS website, and it says it right here, just what I just read. So it's the secretary tells us you're not included. But people who do not know that, who are ignorant of the fact, they get themselves in trouble. So, wherefore the IRS code, United States, when used in a geographical sense, means a collective of the above 6 states and no other thing. And the state means the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, Guam, America Samoa, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, and no other thing. So, and then we go down, and which I did already, I took apart when Alaska became a territory and then Hawaii became a territory. And this is just a recap of what I've already said. And you're welcome to look at it for a few minutes. Well, not a few minutes, but a minute. So then he goes on. Now, the political sense means the District of Columbia, to wit. The United States means, remember, it means that it's a corporation. And the United States is located in the District of Columbia, and which is in the Uniform Commercial Code. And here again, like if you're looking at, let's say you live in South Carolina, you look up the Commercial Code of South Carolina, you'll find at 369307H, which is pretty much similar to the Commercial Code right there, except they use a statutory identifier in South Carolina, 36, that it is located in the District of Columbia. Well, that's the end of today's presentation. I hope it went well. God bless. This call is now officially over.